The first minister of Zanzibar to put an end to slave trade. Lloyd Matthews convinced the Sultan of Oman to end this inhuman act, and they signed a declaration in 1873 to put an end to slave trade. The Sultan Bagash of Zanzibar agreed to abolish the barbaric trade on June 6, 1873. We can now applaud the efforts of people like Dr. David Livingstone and Bishop Joseph Dubont for their efforts in trying to end slave trade. These slave trade sites and relics that we have seen in this edition of Today with Zamtel, the Road to Independence, will constantly remind us of the history of humankind. There will also be reminders to stand united against any contemporary forms of discrimination, intolerance, xenophobia, injustice, and any form of slavery. Well, Kalumba, it's back to you to let us in on what else Zamtel has in store for us. Until our next episode, have a great evening and looking forward to take you on another exciting journey as we look back on the road to independence of our country.
Wow, I've never heard the story of slave trade in Zambia being told with such depth. Thank you so much to Patience Chisanga for that exciting information. Remember, you can join us on this channel every Thursday at 20 hours as we give you enlightening information about our beloved country, Zambia. Well, it's now time for us to talk about technology and innovation in the segment which we call the Apps Incubator segment with the Chief Executive Officer at Zamtel, Dr. Mwanamwalye. Let us learn more right now.
Good evening, viewers. Welcome to this week's episode of Zamtel App Incubator segment of the show. In this episode, we'll be looking at the design of a travel mate app. This application will enable users to check travel schedules offered by different operators, and the modes of transport will be by bus, train, or by air. I'll now introduce you to Fixon, who will take us through the database design, and he will also take us through the different architectural structures of Android.
Thank you, Milemo. So to start with, we need to collect information about the different transport types, be it air transport or train transport or bus transport. And we also know that for each of those different types of transport, we have different operators that offer these different transport types. So we want our app to be able to show users those particular different types of transports. Now, for us to be able to capture the schedule information of the different operators, we're going to need to keep that information in a route plan table, and we can further break down this route plan into route stops. We will also need to keep information about the different towns, which we're going to depict in our app, and these can further be grouped into provinces. We also need to store the different fare information, because the requirement of the mobile app is for us to be able to give the costs of the different route plans. So at the end of it all, we're going to end up with a table structure as shown above, after identifying the different strong attributes for each of the different entities identified. So now, to put it all together, we have the architectural layout of the app, where we're expecting the application to have logically 3 different layers of presentation. We're talking about the backend layer, and the business logic layer, and the presentation layer. The backend layer is, of course, what is going to store all the information that we just model in our database design. Then this information is going to be retrieved and processed in the business layer, after which it will be passed on to the different UIs in the presentation layer.
From what you explained, I'm going to continue talking about the business logic in this area here that you see written JSON. Now, Mr. Fixon has been talking about the database layer, but we need to get the information into the business logic so that we have a way of presenting it in the presentation. Now, the business logic is broken into 2 parts, which is the business core logic and the data access object logic. Now, the data access objects logic is created so that it's able to retrieve information from the database regardless of where it is and put it in a particular format that suits the actual application for the core business to use. Now, the medium of transference that we're going to use is called JSON, which is a JavaScript simple object notation. Now, from the database objects, we retrieve the information, convert it into a JSON string object, and pass it through the data objects layer into the actual business objects, which we're going to see later on. After that's done, the manipulation is done by the business core objects, and the information is then later on shared with the presentation logic, which is used to be able to view by you, the users.
So now we move on to a very important and very sensitive aspect of mobile application development. And this is now the graphical user interface. Here we have the home screen, and as well as the second operator screen. Now, as you can see here, these are designed in a very simple yet very informative manner. The home screen is basic. You only swipe and then move on to the next one where you select, you're able to select a particular transporter, which takes us to the next slide where we can select the first option to give us this result. Now, you can see that this is the simple design that we've come up with as a team to represent the entire graphical user interface. Simple, yet very informative.
Thank you very much, viewers, for joining us in this week's episode. We hope that you have started developing your own application alongside our development of our application. Please join us next week in next week's episode, where we'll be looking at developing or creating an Android project.
All right, it seems our time is up now. We have to go. Thank you so much for joining us on this very informative edition of Today with Zantel. Thank you so much to my colleague and field presenter, Patience Chisanga, for that really insightful information about slave trade in Zambia and the surrounding region. Well, you can also find us on Facebook. Just look for the official Zantel page, and you can be part of the app's development process. On behalf of my producer, Kennedy Mambwe, and indeed the entire production crew, I am Kalumba Chikonde. Till next week at the same time, on the same channel, it's bye for now, and God bless you.